G'day, it's Pete here. Today I'm back for a featured lesson on killing leads. Now, leading's often one of the parts of the game which is often pretty difficult, and that's because there's a lot of guesswork involved, and also you'll just never be 100% right. There's no right or wrong answer on all the leads. So just trying to give some tips today on some different aspects that you can sort of think about to improve your leading. So I'll discuss some of what I like to think about when I'm trying to lead. Now, most people when they're leading just sort of look at their hand and go, okay, well maybe I've got a singleton here or I've got a sequence here and they should lead that. I don't think that's the best way to approach it. There's a few different things I want to discuss. So firstly, when you're leading, this is the only part of the entire defense where any one player can only see 13 cards. After you've led, everyone else can see 26 of their cards. And so you're at a disadvantage because you know far less about it. And because of this, you have to put in a lot of extra effort to work out what you do know about the hands. So use the information available to you is what I'm trying to get at. So you have the information from your 13 cards, but also there's the bidding. And you want to combine using the bidding and your hand, put it together to try and work out what the best lead is. So most people just focus on their hand and just lead something, but I think use the bidding to your advantage. Now, there's lots of things like if partner bids a suit, you should lead that, and that stuff's all kind of obvious, so I'm not going to go really into that. I'm going to talk about some other things, which is when you're leading, that's basically the start of the defense. So you're trying to start your partnership on the right path of defense. And what I like to consider are the sort of 5 main types of defenses that people will try to defeat the opponents. Now, I'll just run through what they are. There's a forcing defense, drawing trumps, active, passive, and trumping. Okay. Now, there are more types, but these are just generalized terms and ideas about how we're trying to get there. And what it is a forcing defense is basically you want the make them run out of trumps or run out of trump control such that your side is the one with trumps, so that if you have any suit set up now, you can take all your trumps in your own time and just give them issues in trump control. So forcing means forcing them to trump basically and lose trump control. Drawing trumps is basically instead of declare a drawing trumps, you do it. And the idea is you think that they're going to do some cross-ruffing defense or possibly try and trump losers in the shorthand or something. And if you can draw the trumps first, then you can stop that. Another one's active defense, and I'll talk a lot about active and passive later as well. But what active is basically you're trying to get your tricks really quickly. Like they're about to vanish. You get yours in first before they get theirs, sort of like a race. And you need to get your tricks in early, and you're being really aggressive about it. So you might occasionally give away tricks because you misguess what's going on, but you try and get your tricks in really early because if you don't get them, they're going to vanish and they're going to take all the rest of the tricks after that. So sort of like it's a race. And the other one is passive, which is completely opposite, which is you're not worried about the tricks going anywhere. So you just want to make them open up all the suits and be really passive and do everything they can. And like you just wait to collect. Like you know that you don't need to play your big cards at any stage until they open up the suit. And then when they do, you collect it and make sure you get the maximum number of tricks in any suits that they have to open up. And then finally there is trumping by setting up extra trump tricks by just roughing if you've got a shortage or something and the suits break badly. Now, Everyone knows how to do the sort of trumping one, and other people also like the active defense. They're the two main defenses that people just instinctively choose to try and do. They want to race in and get their tricks straight away, or they want to try and trump stuff. But they don't often think about the other three, which is the forcing defense, the drawing trumps, or the passive. And they're all really good. Hi Karenina, thanks for coming in and watching. If you got any questions, feel free to shoot them through. So they're the sort of 5 defenses, and when you're leading, you want to think about which sort of defense you want to take and what information you've got and how you actually choose to do that. Now, as I said, when you're leading, you're just guessing at this. You don't have all the information available to you. So you have to just, like, you're not stuck on that path at the start, but you just want to have a good idea that this is what you want to do. So I got some tips on when you should try and do the different defenses. So the forcing defense, which I mentioned earlier, is getting them to run out of trumps and you get trump control. So something that suggests doing that is that you know trumps aren't breaking well for them. So typically you've got long trumps, or possibly you know that your partner has long trumps. But trumps are not breaking for them, so that if they try and draw trumps, they're going to have a lot of difficulties after that. So I usually go for the forcing defense when I've got trump length, something like 4 or more trumps. So if that's the case, instead of leading a shortage from my side, I much prefer to lead away from my long suits. So if you have another long suit and you lead it, the opponents are more likely to have to trump it. Now, you want the long trump hand to trump, not the shorter one. So you might have chosen wrong when you lead, but you can adjust after that. But if you've got length in trumps, making them run out of trumps is usually much more effective and devastating than just trying to go for a ruff yourself. So that's the forcing defense. You want to do it when trumps aren't breaking and you've got trump length, and what you do is you lead away from your long suit. The drawing trumps option, you want to do that when their side suits aren't splitting well, or otherwise it sounds like they have shortages. Now, a common auction that you might sort of see, and this one just basically really wants a trump lead, is you might have an auction something like this. Something like that. Ignore the hand that I'm showing at the bottom. But here, if you get this auction where the north hand says that they have spades and hearts, and the other hand says they've got diamonds and hearts, the way I infer this is that the north hand has spades and hearts and probably has a shortage in diamonds, and the other hand has diamonds and hearts and probably has a shortage in spades. And if that's the case, the way they're going to do this is just try and cross-ruff the hand. And if you think the opponents are going to cross-ruff, what should you do? You should lead trumps and start drawing trumps for them so they can't do that as much. Now, before I lead trumps, I'd want to see that some of their suits aren't breaking, so I would want either cards in their suit or something like that, not just like 3 small sitting in their suit knowing that the suit's going to break perfectly well. But this is a common sort of auction. Another similar one they might have is they might have something like a multi-2 option. Something like this, where 2 spades says, partner, I have a 5-5 shape with spades and a minor. The next hand says, okay, tell me what your minor is. And then they settle in 3 diamonds. And what this hand auction says is, the 2 spade bidder says, I've got spades and diamonds and lots of distribution. And the other hand says, I really don't like spades, I've got the minors. So they have shortage in spades and the minors, and the other hand's got a distributional hand. So again, they're probably going to do some cross-ruffing, but I'd like to check that the spades aren't breaking. So if the side suits don't break well, or you know that they've got shortages, that opposing shortages, drawing trumps is often a really good idea. So trump leads are usually can be quite devastating, but what I like to do is in the bidding, if it says, like if you think about the bidding and then just try and predict how they're going to play the hand, think what's the best counter to that? How can I stop that the most effectively? And in these sorts of auctions, if you know their secondary suits aren't splitting well, they'll need to get their tricks by trumping, and if they have to do that, the best counter is to actually draw the trumps. Okay. Next one's active defense, and this is something people like to do somewhat naturally, which is lead away from goods, try and get their tricks as quickly as possible. They like getting in there and taking their cards, and they don't like sitting and waiting. But an active defense, I'll talk more about some examples of what leads are active and what they aren't later, but the times you want an active defense is when you know that a side suit is working, and basically you predict that their general plan is that they're just going to draw trumps, run side suit, dispose losers. And so if their side suit is working, then you know that they're going to dump all their losers. So you need to get your tricks really quickly. So if they've got a spot to dump losers, you have to get in there and take your tricks before they can dispose their losers. So an active defense and trying to get your tricks in quickly is what you want to do. So an example of this might be an auction something like this, where you know one hand's got a heart suit. Again, we're ignoring the actual hand, you can see, where they've bid hearts and then they found a spade fit. Now, if you're looking at something like three little hearts, or any hearts you have badly positioned for the defense, you know that the heart suit's going to set up, and then declarer will just draw trumps and then throw all their losers away on hearts. So we really want to get our minor suit tricks in really quickly. So we want to find an aggressive lead and try and get your tricks really quickly if that's the case. Whereas if you knew that the hearts weren't breaking, then you know you don't need to be aggressive because they won't be able to dispose their losers straight away. Okay. A passive defense, on the other hand, not many people like to do it. This it's not very instinctive, but basically you sit and wait around and make the opponents open up every suit possible, and then when they open up the suit, you basically maximize on how many tricks you've got. The general premise of this is that if your side has to open up the suit, it is usually bad for you. Like, it's either no cost or bad. There's never a win case when you have to open up the suit. So if you can make an opponent open up the suit, it is usually good for you, but you can't always wait for that to happen, and that's the case. So passive defenses are used when you know that they won't have anywhere to dispose of losers. Like, there's no rush. They're going to have to be opening up as many suits as possible, and you want to make them do that, just to maximize how many tricks you can get. So when should you do a passive defense? Now, I think passive defenses are really good, and if in doubt, I tend to go the passive approach than any others. But what it is you want a sort of no known side suit. You don't know that they're gonna throw anything away. So they might just bid spades, 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 or something like that. And doesn't look like you're in any rush to throw anything away because you don't know of any side suit they're going to have. Or they have an invitational auction. So maybe they have something like one no trump pass, something like this, right? Where they've had invitational values. And if they've got invitational values, it means they're stretching, and you want to make sure you don't give away tricks. Other invitational options. Yeah. Not the best invitational auction, but you might see something like this. And if this is the case, they have very limited values. And if you lead away from honors, you might give away tricks. Now, being passive and making them open up all the suits is sort of what you want to do if they've got just invitational values. Another time you might want to be passive is they do say they've got a side suit, but you know you've got it covered. That suit's not going to run, so they'll have to come up with a backup plan. And assuming they're not just able to sort of cross-ruff the hand, you might just choose a passive lead and make them work on all the suits themselves. So you can go passive if there's no known side suit, or they're stretching, so they're invitational, or if you know that their side suit's not going to work anyway. And finally, the other one is trumping. Now, people love to do this, which is we have a shortage and we just want to lead the shortage and get some ruffs. Now, I recommend this when you have a shortage but you don't have length in trumps. So if you've got 4 or more trumps, the forcing defense takes priority. But if you don't have that, I usually recommend leading your shortages. Other times you might not want to do that is if you've got natural trump tricks. So if you've got natural trump tricks, you don't want to lead your shortage because it might not help you getting a ruff. Just a few tips on leading singletons is the whole point of leading a singleton is that you want your partner to get in and give you a ruff. Now, if you know from your hand that your partner has very little chance of getting in because you've got all the points, then you won't be able to get partner in, so leading a shortage is not a good idea if you have the majority of the points for the defense. You also don't lead singletons against grand slams because, again, that's to try and get... If your partner could get in, you've already beaten the grand slam. So a couple of minor tips about when not to lead shortages there. Alright, so I've covered the 5 types of defenses, what they are and when you should be trying to employ them, and then also sort of how to employ them. I'll now talk a little bit about what active leads are. So let's now look at this hand and for example think what leads would be active. So if we had to open up any suits, how active would it be? Now, an active lead is basically leading away from an honor. So you're really trying to set up a suit and you're hoping that your partner has some matching cards in that suit so that you can knock out whatever tricks they have, or otherwise just get your tricks really quickly. So it's basically leading away from honors. Now what this can mean is sometimes your partner will have nothing in the suit and you give the opponents a trick that they couldn't have otherwise taken. But basically you're trying to win the race here. Now, if I was looking at this hand, 3 of these suits are really active leads. This heart suit is really active. You've got 2 honors in here, they're not touching. So this would be a very hyperactive lead. You could really set up a couple of tricks, but the risk of giving away tricks is quite high. Ace Queen Doubleton, again another really active lead. You've got 2 honours and you're leading a Doubleton. You could easily give away tricks, but you might be able to get a couple really quickly. Diamonds, it is an active lead because you're leading away from the king and the 10, but if your partner's got some cards such as the Queen of Diamonds or something, you might be able to set up some tricks pretty quickly. Whereas if you lead away from a spade, you're not really trying to set up tricks so much. Any finesses they could have taken sort of will work, but you're just trying not to give anything away. So I'll just open up the whole hand so you can see sort of positions. Now, in this heart suit, if we let a heart, they could just finesse the 10 or the queen straight away, and we haven't given anything away. But if we swapped the hearts around and the east hand had all the hearts rather than west, and we let a heart, again they would get 2 heart tricks, but this time they weren't entitled to it. It's only because of my lead that east would be able to win the queen or 10 of hearts. Now, if you then put it in the final position, which is my partner's hand, would instead just take all the heart tricks straight away. So it's very active. So in one position, so in the west hand, it didn't matter what we did. If the hearts were in the east position, we've now given away tricks. But if it's in our partner's hand, we get our tricks straight away. Now, again, if we look at the club suit, we've got ace queen, and if we just move our partner's club suit around. Now, if with partner having it, we get our club suit tricks straight away, and it worked. If it was in the west hand, it didn't matter that we led it or not. But if it was in the east hand, we'd be setting up the king of clubs and also the jack, and giving them tricks they weren't entitled to. So where the missing cards are makes whether it works or not. If we look at diamonds, and say we let a diamond, the opponents would be able to get 2 diamond tricks straight away without giving up any. Whereas if you move the diamond suit from the west hand to our partner's hand, we would knock out the ace and then get all our diamonds straight away after that. And so active leads can either be set up tricks really quickly for you, or not give anything away, or just give away tricks depending on where the missing cards are located in the other hands. Whereas if we look at spades, if I lead a spade, as it happens, our partner's got really good spades and we might be able to set up some spade tricks, but any spade tricks we could set up would have happened if they played it on, if the east-west hand had to play on spades themselves. Also, if there was any finesse position, we're never giving away a finesse position that they weren't able to take. So they might not have known to take it, but we're not giving them extra tricks that they're not entitled to. So the spade here is passive. So passive is not leading away from honors, and that's what you do when you don't want to risk giving away tricks. All you're sort of doing by leading passive is giving away timing. You're letting the opponents have control of the timing of the hand, but if you know that they can't do anything proactive and that they have to open up all the suits, then passive leads are pretty good. Any questions on sort of active and passive? Okay. Another example hand. Looking at all this. This time, all these suits are reasonably active. There's no sort of known, just no small cards. So The next thing you want to think is what's more active than not. Now, sometimes you want to try and find a passive lead. You've got hands just like this, and basically there's no clear-cut answer. But what I would consider is, I'd consider clubs probably the least active, and then spades. Now, they're both leading away from an honor here and could give away tricks. Now, the Jack of Hearts, I don't really like leading away from doubleton honors. So leading doubletons, it can be okay, but it's not fantastic. But leading away doubleton honors can be pretty scary, and I really don't like doing it too often, unless I'm really stuck for a lead. So I'd avoid that. So then I'd probably choose out of the other suits. Now, I haven't given you any bidding. I'm just sort of trying to describe what these suits are like. Leading away from sort of a 5-card suit to the king might set, if you're defending a suit contract, this could set up tricks, like 1 or 2 tricks, but pretty quickly, but then someone will be trumping in soon. And if you let away and the opponent scored, say, the queen straight away, you might never get your king. If instead you're leading away from 3 to the king, they might score their queen straight away and it might look like you gave away a trick, but you've got a better chance of scoring your king on the 3rd round of the suit if you don't have lots of them. So that's why I think leading away from a spade is less dangerous than leading away from a diamond if you're playing in a suit contract. So the amount of length you got can affect that as well. Alright, so that's basically active and passive leads. I am a big fan of passive leads, unless it's one of those situations I mentioned earlier of when you wanted to employ one of the other defenses. But if in doubt, I generally like trying some passive leads. Next tip on bidding, not on bidding, on leading, that's what I was getting at, is to listen to the bidding. Okay, now I mentioned this earlier, but sometimes it will give you a really good clue and you can work out what's going on in the missing hands. So I'll just give you a real auction here. There we go. So 1 diamond by east, 1 heart by west, 1 no trump by east, 3 diamonds by west, 3 hearts by east, 4 hearts. So listening to the bidding can tell you a lot about where the missing cards are. And let's try and piece together what we know from this bidding. So the west hand has an invitational hand. When they jumped to 3 diamonds was what they meant by it. The east hand has a balanced hand. They've got 3 card support for their partner. Their favourite suit's diamonds, and they're a maximum hand because they accepted the invite by bidding on over 3 diamonds. And west said they've got 5 hearts. Now, what should we lead here? Most people would just look at their hand and go, okay, yeah, I've got this ace-king of clubs, and, oops, we're not on lead. I was meant to make the other hands bid it. Let's just pretend we're on lead anyway. Most hands would say, yep, I got the ace-king of clubs, and I'll just lead that. Now, ace-kings are great leads. Now, if you need more information about what to lead, leading from an ace-king is usually always pretty good because it allows you to see 26 cards rather than 13, and you still hold the lead and then can choose what to do. So you lead an ace-king if you need more information, but this bidding's been pretty revealing. Let's just pretend like the hands were swapped and we were actually on lead, but it's fine. What I like to think about stuff here is, what do we know about the diamond suit? Well, we know that they actually have a diamond fit as well as a heart fit. Okay, so they have a side suit. So earlier on I was talking about side suits and things about that, but we know it's probably 4-4, and that's not going to dispose of losers. But if it's a 4-4 diamond fit, how many diamonds does our partner have? Yeah, they've just got one. If our partner has only one diamond, what can we do to beat this? Now, thinking about defense, we need to take multiple tricks to beat it. What we can actually do is lead the ace of diamonds, and then we can trump a diamond, because our partner's out of it. And we also have an entry back to our hand with a club, and we could let partner in and trump another diamond. In fact, it's very clear that we can beat this contract. It's so clear that we actually should have doubled it. Ace of diamonds, diamond ruff, and we could give suit preference. Club back to our hand, diamond ruff, club back to our hand if that stands up, and another diamond ruff. So we could double this and beat this 2 clubs, the ace of diamonds, and 3 ruffs probably. So we might be able to beat this 3 tricks. And that's just by leading ace of diamonds and playing another diamond. So listening to the bidding gives you a huge clue. So the more revealing the opponent's auction is, the more you can work with. And what you want to do is sort of place where the missing cards are. And here they told you about a diamond fit for them. So your partner has a shortage. So you can lead that shortage for them and realize that trumping defense is the way to go. Okay. Other things people wanted to consider. So I said ace kings are usually good leads if you need more information. Now, most of the time you would want more information. It's not as clear cut as in this example that you can work out automatically what the right defense is. But on this hand, you can work out that you don't need to lead the ace king, but the vast majority of the times, leading an ace from an ace king, seeing the hand and trying to work out what to do from then on is really good. Other good leads include sequences. Now, as expected, people like sequences, and these are good because they're both active, setting up tricks and trying to win the race, and they're also passive at the same time because they're not giving away anything, because if you've got a true sequence, it's not possible that, well, you're basically not giving away tricks that they couldn't otherwise get. So sequences are good because they set up tricks, but they're also not risking tricks at the same time. If you have broken sequences and things like that, then they are more on the active side, but they're still reasonable leads. I briefly mentioned earlier about leading doubletons. Now, leading doubletons is fine and technically okay, but one of the issues about leading doubletons is your partner might realize you're short and try and get in and give you a ruff straight away, but you have to just follow suit because you don't actually have a singleton. So because partner's going to misconstrue how to defend against when you lead your doubleton, you often want something to be able to get back in to play it again. So if you've got something like the ace of trumps, you can win at the trump and hopefully be able to get your partner back in and might be able to get your ruff. So what I'm trying to get at is, if you're leading a doubleton to try and get a ruff, it's usually better to have something like the ace of trumps, just so you've got a bit of catch up so that you can possibly get partner back in after they've misguessed that you've actually got a singleton. And as I said before, honor doubletons are pretty scary stuff. I try and avoid them a fair bit, but you can lead them. Other scary leads that I don't particularly like are leading singleton trumps. that will often pick up tricks that your partner will not be impressed about. Like, the opponents might be in a 9-card fit, missing the queen, and if you lead your singleton, they have no loser. They weren't going to get that one right. Or 8-card fit, missing the jack, and your partner's just annoyed whenever this sort of stuff happens. So leading singleton trumps is pretty scary. There is a time and a place for it, but not just usually. Like, the times that I would actually lead it is when you're defending a doubled part score. If you defend a doubled part score, it is nearly always right to lead trumps, and that's because you've doubled them because you're in control of the trump suit, and if you're in control of it, your side drawing trumps is usually what you want to do. So doubled part scores lead trumps, and your partner's already told them how to play the trump suit, so leading the singleton won't cost that, and in fact is a really good lead. So if you double a part score, lead a trump, unless you know for sure that's not what you want to do. So that was basically what I was going to cover on leads. So I talk a little bit more. I'll just do a summary of what I was covering. So in defense, there's sort of 5 types of defense that I like to consider. There's the forcing defense, drawing trumps, active, passive, and trumping. Now, I like the forcing defense, which is making them rough when we've got long trumps and the trumps aren't breaking. So if I've got 4 or more trumps, I prefer not to lead my shortages but my long suits. I like to do the drawing trumps, which is stopping them cross-ruffing or trumping losers when I know their side suits aren't sitting well, or it sounds like they've got opposing shortages. Active defense, leading away from those honors and trying to set up your tricks really quickly. You do that when they have a side suit. You know that they're going to their basic plan would be draw trumps, play on side suit. So if you know that side suit's running, get your tricks in early. Lead away from those kings, lead away from those queens. Get those tricks in and do it before your tricks vanish. Passive leads, you want to do this when there's no known side suit, or they're an invitational hand, they're stretching, or if they have a side suit, that side suit's not running. So basically, in those cases, the declarer is just going to have to keep opening up all the side suits, and that's what you want them to do. So find the most passive leads you can, which is not leading away from honors. Just make them pick up their own suits. And trumping when we have shortages but not lengthened trumps, and you want to just try and get some extra trump tricks. One other one I was going to mention about drawing trumps is if the opponents sacrifice over your game, the reason they're sacrificing is they've got a good trump fit and they're trying to make the most out of their trumps. So if the opponents sacrifice, leading trumps is again another really good idea frequently. Not always, but a strong consideration. If the opponent's sacrifice, you want to consider leading trumps. So there were my 5 types of defense and the sort of times you want to employ the different leads. So if you're doing a forcing defense, lead your long suit. If you're drawing trumps, lead a trump. Active, lead away from honors. Passive, don't lead away from honors. And trumping, lead shortages. Talked a bit about active and passive leads and what they are, and then mentioned that it's very important to listen to the bidding. Sometimes they can give you a clear-cut way of how you can work out how to beat the contract. So if you've worked out a way to beat the contract while on lead, go for it. Just do that. The bidding can sometimes be very revealing and get the right lead down. If you're unsure about what to lead and you have an ace-king, ace-kings are really good leads, letting you see 26 of the cards rather than 13. Most of the time it won't be very clear-cut, so ace-kings are sensational leads just to have a look at the dummy. And then I've just briefly talked about sequences, which are really good to lead. because they're active and passive. Leading doubletons can be a bit scary. Leading singleton trumps, pretty scary. But if you double a part score, lead a trump. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks all for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. See you next time.